Então vamos lá, eu vou dar 3 segundos aqui. Vocês dão mais 3 segundos e aí pode começar a falar, viu, Juliana?
Beleza.
Vamos lá então. 3, 2, 1.
Então, olá, pessoal. Boa tarde.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Juliana Gimanami. On behalf of CEAEC, I welcome you for this masterclass. For this second season of Foundations of Evolutionology, today we are going to present the course, history, and the main topic, which is the 20 mega attributes, propellers of evolution. So the idea is to present it and to answer your questions, your doubts, and the objectives of the course and the dynamics of the classes in order to follow this line in the course. So I will ask Roberto to start with the slides to show you how we are going to handle this course. So we are going to start the second season in which we are going to deal with these 20 mega attributes, propellers of evolution. So we are going to the slides before we are going to present the team and the objectives and the history. So the summary of what we are going to talk today, we are going to talk about the course, the team, and the guidelines of this course, Foundations of Evolutionology. And then we are going to deal with the concept of this evolutionary mega attribute, why the evolutionologists prioritize these attributes, and this is what we are going to do, to give priority to some attributes, and then we are going to debate this list of mega attributes and how they contribute for our evolution. And we are going to go deeper into these aspects along the course. And we are going to show you the course schedule. And we are going to present also the next seasons to help us with this cosmovision about Foundations of Evolutionology. So briefly, we are going to present the team, the instructor team. We have 13 instructors. We have Alexandre Zaslaves, Daniel Machado, Daiane Forza, Eduardo Azevedo, myself, Juliana Nani, Isabella Colari, Jana Vilassa, Mabel Telly, Maximiliano Raime, Pedro Fernandes, Roberto Laime, Rosanada, and Rodrigo Marchioli. All will bring their specialties to go deeper into this concept. Everyone in their specialties contributing for this debate. Some of these instructors are experts on this topic, so we are going to have the chance to exploit all this understanding. So the guidelines of the course is actually an integral cosmovisionological analysis considering multi and interdimensional aspects, avoiding this dichotomy between intra and extra physicality. So we are going to try to understand all the particularities, and we should base our discussions on facts and parafacts and avoid speculation. And we know that some topics are beyond our understanding. So the idea here is to accelerate our evolutionary process, but based on scientificity and evidence and using discernment during this process. We will have, of course, some extrapolations, but the idea is to base them on facts in our manifestations and in our daily life. And we consider the evolutionary scale from minerals to pre-conscious, and trying to understand this integral process. When we are going to discuss about the history of the course, you will see some interesting aspects we had in the first season. So just to have a general idea, we consider this evolutionary cycle of minerals, vegetables, communal, and pre-conscious. We have some factors. For instance, for minerals, we have the cleavage, and vegetables, we have the lignin helping this process. Within the hormonal level, we have ectoplasmy, and here we will try to expand this evolutionary cycle, helping us to understand the evolutionary scale. And here we have the model as the Serenissimus. Probably you have already studied about it. And then we are going to see the percentages we have in each level. And this is the point, to understand what is the percentage according to my features, where we are. And we can use some tools to accelerate our evolutionary process. So feel free to bring your comments, your ideas. And this is only the basis for our debate today. So we are talking about the evolution of the consciousness, and we are going to talk a lot about the evolutionary scale. And the idea is to identify ourselves within this scale and the mega attributes we are using and the ones we are not using yet to accelerate this process, using the model as the Serenissimus. Do we have any questions? Can we go ahead? So let's go ahead with a brief history of this course, Foundations of Evolutionology. And I would like to invite Roberto Laimes to give a general view about it. And please feel free to bring your questions. So good afternoon, everybody. So this course, we are reaching the second season, 2021. We had predicted to start it only in the second semester of this year, but because of the pandemic, we actually anticipated it. And I think that the first season was a huge success, and the content we selected were related to the basic concepts of evolution. And we did select some principles and laws which explain in a way how evolution works. Of course, we have many other principles and laws, but we selected the main principles and laws to have the basis for this evolutionary process. So this can be seen as the introduction of the topic. So all these courses are recorded and they are available. You can buy them. For those who did not have the chance to attend the course, you can still enroll for this course. And here are the main principles and laws we dealt in the first season. And we went deeper in each of these modules. So we had this composition of classes and debate, first between the instructors, and at the end, a debate between the instructors and the students. And this worked very well. because we are dealing with very advanced ideas, complex ideas, and it's very difficult to have them hide in a conceptual approach. So this system worked very well. So now we have this basic guideline here. We have always some questions in every class to provoke the debate. So this way of debate basically is the concept and where we observe it, how does it manifest, how can we recognize in our self-research, how we can identify this mega attribute in our daily life, and how to use this concept and how to apply them in our self-evolution. So how can we use this concept to develop new postures, new actions? So evolution means new adjustments, new adaptation. So how do we behave facing these attributes? We will always work trying to have debates. There are some other important questions related to this second season, which are why did evolutionologists prioritize such attributes? So what did these evolutionologists prioritize in their evolution? Where do we observe these attributes? How do such attributes manifest, and how can we recognize these attributes through self-research, and how to apply them in our self-evolution? So these are the questions we want to bring. One problem we identified, and I want to start now the debate with the instructors, is that we are used to look at the evolutionary scale from outside. We see the Serenissimists on top of it, and evolutionologists, and we are outside of this scale. We understand it as separate things, but actually these are all integrated. We have a percentage of the Serenissimists, we have a percentage of the Virtus, and if we have a percentage of evolutionologists, we have attributes of this level. We can have a higher or a lower percentage of these attributes, but we have them. So it's not the case to wait until we reach one level to acquire this attribute. It's not something we are waiting for. And here we have the topics we are going to discuss, these 20 mega attributes. Another way we found out in this first season is that when we use debates, some classes just for debates, to see what has been left behind. So we have here one debate in the middle, and then at the end, the final debate. So, as we commented before, within the evolutionary scale of the consciousness, I would like to compare here. I made this calculation considering a practitioner as a reference. So people who are at this level interested in Penta or practicing Penta we are placing everybody here at this level. So if we consider this level as 100%, how much do we have from the evolutionology? So we would have 33% of this level. And if we consider the first level, the transmigrated console, we can say that we are 2.5 times higher than this level. So I think that's why Valdo Vieira always said, we are genius, we are really good, because we are 2.5 times higher than the transmigrated console. But I would like to bring your attention to the other side of the scale, comparing to the evolutionology. We have 33% of these qualities or attributes from the consensus, from the evolutionology. So we should not wait and until this pandemic is away, or we take the vaccine to understand these attributes. So the idea of this course is to characterize how the evolution happens, work, and trying to qualify these mega attributes related to evolutionologies. So this is one general objective of this course, the second season. Here, we can see the next season, number 3, which will be the memorandum. So this is a memorandum focused on self-research, so self-conscientiality. So here, in this third season, the focus will be the memorandum. And in the fourth season, we will focus on the evolutionary scale. So we will take every level, and we will study according to our possibilities, all under this structure of debates with the instructors and debates with the students. So just to compare here, to bring your attention, we have several scales in conscientiology. The most used is this serenological scale, from conscials to Serenissimus and free concepts. So we have 10% up to 100%, which is the Serenissimus. But just to compare with one karmic scale, what we have actually is nearly the opposite. We are going to reduce along the scale. We are dealing with the karma, and we can have this theoretical organization. So basically speaking, the Serenissimus, before becoming a free concept, he is nearly at the 0 level for the karmic scale. So we have one comparison. The more basic level of the scale, more we are dealing with the karmic aspect. And we are going to go deeper into these aspects when we discuss about the evolutionary scale. So just to tell you about what we have in mind. So this season is actually to focus on the mega attribute of evolution. So I bring this first question. What is a propeller mega attribute of evolution? Who wants to start answering this question? So we have some references we can comment, but I would like to listen to my colleagues. Can we stop this presentation and then we can make it available for everybody? So let's go to this debate among the instructors, and then later we can go back to the question. So the first one is, what is a propeller mega attribute of evolution? So we can only start this course next week if we have this answer very clearly. So if you don't understand what is this mega attribute, we can cancel all the program we have planned for from next week. So before we answer this question, maybe we should remember some basic concepts. So let's see the concept of a trait, of an attribute. So an attribute can be positive or negative. And from these concepts, we have the strong traits and the weak traits and missing traits. So when we look at the strong traits, we can see the behavior. For instance, the person is very creative, is very dynamic, is very communicative. So, or on the other hand, the person is very shy or not so communicative. So when we go to the attribute, I think we are adding something more. So we can include characteristics, but something more. So it's one level higher. So we have two verbs. One is consensual attributes, and the other one is attributology. For example, intellectuality. This is one attribute, but within this attribute, it's not just traits, but we have the way the class connect ideas. So I leave this concept merely about a trait, but I add something more. So an attribute is composed ideas. So we have to understand the ideas about energies, and we add something more. So under my vision, we have a synergism of things. And then I can think about a mega attribute. So this is the way I make my ideas about mega attributes. So these are just the first ideas.
Certo, Daiane. Quem mais gostaria de comentar aí?
Okay.
Então, lembrando
Who
que
else?
a ênfase
So
será nos
to
20
remember,
minutos.
to remind you, the focus will be these 20 mega attributes. So along this season, we will go deeper into each of these 20 mega attributes. So, and one question is why Valdo Vieira used this expression, mega attribute. The first one, the first verbet in the encyclopedia is actually consensual openness. And it is also the first attribute. So I will not give an answer now, but I want to open for the colleagues to bring their contribution. So I used to understand this mega attribute as something involving multidimensionality and involving an integral approach of consciousness. So I think an attribute is more related to the brain And a mega attribute for me is more related to the parabrain. And everything Diane said, I would just add that within this multidimensionality and extra conscientiality and interconscientiality, we have the attribute making the consciousness, understanding itself as a consciousness. So, for example, I think about this trinomial. We have these three aspects: cosmoetics, fraternism, and universalism. If we combine these three aspects, we can say that from these three, we have all the others. And when we think about this mega philosophical trinomial, we can understand most of these 20 mega attributes. So, because they are mega attributes, in other words, multidimensional and interconsciential attributes, they will make evolution faster. So evolution needs this continuous, this sequence of things reaching this level. I have another element to add to this debate. When we go to the definition of attributes, this is a neutral definition. So we can have an attribute in a negative or in a positive condition. But a mega attribute is homeostatic. So this is another variable to consider. This condition of homeostasis is a required condition. I agree with you, but I always think about this big turning point of the mega intruder. And Claudio Vieira used to say that if a mega intruder makes this turning point, he can then change the way he evolves. So I don't have an answer, but I ask myself if this mega attribute should be applied. And it has to do with the intention of the person, the way the person will use this attribute. I have this doubt. Exactly because I see this possibility of a mega intruder making this turning point and change the way he's evolving. Well, from the point we are using a mega attribute, this is homeostatic. And I would like to bring to you, I think the criterion Valdo Vieira used was priority. For example, self-intrusion. It's not possible to be to have this condition of self-intrusion in a negative way. So let's listen to the others. So I think Rosa answered her question. We have this question about one attribute being neutral, but it's a question of orthotosanity. This turning point of a mega intruder has to do with this orthotosanity. And he's actually using the mega attribute to do this. Of course, we have many other aspects. But one point I wanted to comment is about prioritization on the sense that these mega attributes should be priorities. We studied a lot of other attributes, but we have to consider what is priority in my case. And if I want to accelerate my evolutionary process, I have to give priority to the ones, these 20 mega attributes. Thinking about self-research. So among these 20 mega attributes, which ones should receive priority within my condition? What would be the priorities in my case to promote this acceleration of my evolution? I think, Rosa, this mega turning point of the mega intruder can be seen in a positive way. So, to contribute with this debate, this transition between attribute and mega attribute, I suggest 2 points. An attribute is a neutral feature, divided attention and other things. These are attributes. But mega attributes, when we start to analyze it, we understand it as a composition of several attributes. And, for example, divided attention or mental concentration, these are attributes. But I imagine that with all these attributes, all these mega attributes use the mental concentration. But I think mega attributes start when we assume the evolutionary intelligence. For example, the mega intruder, when he realized, well, how can I evolve? I have such attributes, such strong traits. If I use it or use them for evolution, I can evolve faster. So my point is, it is a composition of several attributes and using them with evolutionary intelligence. I think it's exactly this vision we need when we look at mega attributes. These synergies, interaction. When we see all this binomial and trinomial in the encyclopedia, we realize this. Otherwise, we have a tendency to diminish this importance. I agree with your point. I also would like to contribute and answering partially some of these questions, especially why the potential openness is the first one. I think is to make room for this belief. We think about this mega intruder, the process is to change the way of thinking. So the question about which attribute we are using nowadays, maybe all of us, we are using this consensual openness. Otherwise, we would not be here discussing about evolution. So we are facing this, leaving the comfort zone. So, have we answered all the questions? You know, well, I think that from all all points here, we can say that these mega attributes are a composition of several attributes. All these mentioned before. So I think the will is the basis for this process of combining all the attributes, thinking about evolution, and to make this turning point. So in this case of the mega intruder, this is how I see it. So the will is something very important. So we need the will to make this turning point. And even for us, we need this will to make this turning point, to reach this turning point. I think this is one aspect of the mega attributes.
Beleza? E onde que a gente observa esses...
Okay, and where we can observe them, how to identify them. For example, when we are teaching conscienciology and we are presenting all the advanced concepts, where are the sources and the evidence for these mega attributes? We have a lot of advanced concepts in conscientiology, and among them, we have these mega attributes. We can talk about them and about others, and how to identify them. Conscientiology means evolutionology is a synonym of experimentology and evolutionology. So everything makes sense as we can experiment. So the mental somatic reality, the extra-physical reality, the ideas, the feelings can be more concrete than the physical reality, the intraphysical reality. So how to identify them without being only theoretical? We can talk a lot about each of these mega attributes, but the question is, how can we observe, identify them? For example, if I have just a small percentage of the participity or openness, how to improve it? I think this is a practical question. We see the mega attributes in our daily life. So if we consider, for example, multidimensional self-awareness, the person will ask how to measure this through the parapsychic by the level of lucidity in his or her projections. So the level of paraperceptibility in a daily basis, in a daily life. These are practical things. Another one, prioritization. Many people talk about giving priorities. This mega attribute is talking about evolutionary prioritization. So the person should analyze the choices, the daily choices, and the level of priorities, even to the evolutionary level or condition of the consciousness, not the conscience. So I think all these mega attributes, they should be observed in practical terms in our daily life, not just when we are teaching conscientiology, but when we have difficulties in life, when we have tension, we have a problem related to our evolution. how this crisis reach the person and how the person deals with this condition. So all this will show the level of manifestation of these attributes. For example, energetic control. What is the level of sustainability? Holochakral sustainability. All the time, not just when she's at home. So I think it's on this line. I think when you mention about energetic control, another element we can consider is how the person uses this. What is the existential balance from this? One thing is the self-defense, but another is how the person interacts using this situation. So this is the karmic condition and the interactions, multidimensional interactions. So we can see in this, at this point, we can see the level of discernment. And this is a challenge for us to always check the level of our manifestation and what is the next step in terms of prioritizing things. I think this is a constant evaluation. And I think, for instance, if we consider intentionality, this is a very important attribute, but discernment is another one. So one helps another. So we see a synergies between these ideas that will accelerate the process. I think, in a way, one is dependent on another. You cannot reach higher levels of multidimensional self-awareness if you don't have cosmoethics. So one thing depends on the other. It's not possible to reach only one. You have to deal with others. So we only separate these mega attributes to have a didactic approach. For example, energetic control is a very important basis for self-diffusion. So theoretically, we have them separated, but in practical terms, we will see them all interacting in synergics. There was one question in one tertulia. I asked about the vibrational state and how it can help our evolution. And his answer was, it depends on your intention. If the person has a bad intention, this will result in something very bad for the person. So even if we consider the vibrational state, which is something very simple, we should be well positioned and clearly about our intention when we do it. I also remember this 100 reduction of self-discernment from Homo sapiens pacificus. If we develop them and apply them pro-evolutionarily, then we will reach it. But with some exceptions, for example, if we consider the will, we can use our will for different types of intentions. So if you use it in your favor, for example, we give wrong priorities. Sometimes we make wrong choices. But if we really consider what is the mega priority for this time, then we will go ahead. So, in this sense, for me, mega attribute includes more than our physical brain, our physical interest. It's from the consciousness, it's something conscientiological, from the part of brain. And the way we apply them, I agree with you, only one of these mega attributes will not give a good result. We have to combine them. One supports the other. When we think about cosmetics and will, intention, prioritization, we can then have this guideline reaching evolution. So if we consider all these 20 mega attributes, we can accelerate our evolution. This is very interesting because this combination we talked about before, when we think about just one mega attribute, when we think about working on one mega attribute, we have to work on others. We have to think about cosmoethics and other ones. There is one question or one comment talking about memory having a direct relationship with mega attributes. Yeah, this is correct. Memory is like a synthesis of our identity, and of course it will be related to mega attributes. Well, memory is already one attribute. If we use it in a good way, we can then combine all these mega attributes we are talking about today. Without memory, we cannot understand how these mega attributes are composed. So I want to provoke you. When we talk about our personal evolutionary record, what can we think about this, our personal evolutionary record? So there are several variables that are very important for this discussion. Some people argue, why should I waste my time studying previous life? Well, this is a very interesting item, and I thought about the meaning here is how to qualify our personal evolutionary record. So we have more possibilities. We can change the level of our group karmic evolution. So this is actually a very good way to accelerate our evolution. Well, it's probably about being aware and conscious about our personal evolutionary record. It's not just to know it. This is very intellectual. It's to work on it, to qualify it. Not just this attribute, but the other ones. Each attribute, everyone, each one, we have different levels. We have a level of openness. We have a level of the participity. Oh, I thought about this item. Why this record, this personal record, should be a mega attribute. I think it's because this record will open or close certain ways. So it's like you show your achievement.
Abstrato, né, gente? Então, outra coisa.
This is like the balance.
O nível que a gente está, gente, pesa
In our level,
por aí, a gente,
I think
comigo mesmo, e também os atendimentos que a gente faz,
when
e tudo mais, dos gargalos
we have these consultancies, and in average, the problem is related to positioning, self-positioning. So one difficulty, or a very common difficulty, is to position yourself regarding your personal record. Some people say, I'm pacifist. I have nothing to do with policies. And we have a history behind. And this history is, these attributes are the consequence of our holobiographical history. And we had different roles and experiences. So this can be like the X-ray of your evolution. So I see that this is a very practical item. This is not a theoretical concept. It's actually the effect of this record in our present. So these are the effects of your holotosphenic profile. It's a summary of everything that's acting in the present. So sometimes we have to think about in which field I see openness and other fields, they are closed. So this record is a synthesis of the history of consciousness. Once I asked Paulo Vieira, how can we access our personal record? He said, this personal evolutionary record is your para-brain. So the evolutionologist will access your record because it's here. Yes, I thought about it as a concept. It's the way the consciousness manifests. And this will depend on what this person sees and what this person manifests. I did not think about para-brain, but actually it's the essence of consciousness. I never thought about this synthesis as a mega attribute, but I think it makes sense. So we can have a very practical indicator. Who are the people coming to be assisted in your penta? This is your personal evolutionary record. It's there. You can see clearly. And sometimes the person complains about the family, about the job, and this reveals difficulties to face the personal evolutionary record. So, and sometimes we have a mega strong trait without being used. And some people say, well, I want a good life, I want to go to the beach. And I always mention, because I have a trauma being living for many years in small towns, not on the well, let's listen to our lawyer. He's the one who is able to evaluate our record.
Diga aí, Jânia, depois eu me posiciono aqui.
Well,
Eu só quero ressaltar uma
Jânia
coisa
first.
nessa fala nossa agora.
In this debate,
Lá no começo da fala, quando
I remind myself
você avalia lá a
from the
escala
beginning, when Roberto said we are evaluating the evolutionary scale from outside.
Mas agora,
We
olhando
see the
a
Sereníssimos, we see the Evoluciologists,
você
but now talking about our personal evolutionary record, there is no way to escape.
como você falar de conscienciologia,
We cannot talk about conscientiology without talking about ourselves.
quem é que bate na sua tenete, quem é que você
So,
tem como amigo,
who comes to our penta? Where are you volunteering? What are your difficulties? So what are the attributes you are using to solve these questions? So it's just the point I want to make. It's not possible to talk about these mega attributes without talking about ourselves.
Não, mas sobre a FEP aí, Roberto,
Well,
pensando
about
falando,
this
acho que é um
record,
pouco na linha
I
que a Mabel
think
comentou, só que
it's about on the
essa
line Mabel
carteirada, vamos dizer
commented
assim, né,
before.
regular, a carteirada,
So
eu
when we
diria
have,
que seria mais um passaporte mesmo, né?
we can see it as a
passaporte
passport,
multidimensional.
a multidimensional
FEP, ela nos
passport.
mostra onde a gente tem
It
trânsito,
shows
né,
where we can go
extrafisicamente também, né?
extraphysically and
Extrafisicamente, talvez isso
intraphysically.
fique mais claro. Mas então eu vejo, assim, pensando,
So I
tentando
see,
traduzir a FEP como um atributo, eu traduziria
trying to translate it as an attribute, I would see it as a passport, where I go easily, where I'm welcome, where I am non grata persona. So these are reflex from our record, our personal evolutionary record. So this passport can be paradiplomatic. I have a free transit in many places, or I'm not welcome in some areas. I don't have a moral authority within certain groups. So one word helping us to understand it is passport, and to analyze in which level my passport is paradiplomatic. I listened to Rodrigo. I remember the time Valdo was talking about evoluciologists appearing here. He said they will appear when we get better. So we have to improve ourselves to amplify this vision about the personal evolutionary record. When we think about the record of an evolutionologist comparison to ours, there is a big gap. So we have to improve our record in order to receive the visits, the coming of evoluciologists. So you see the side from other people and our own side. So this brings us to a certain balance situation and being able to receive this more evolved consciousness. This gave me a huge impact. I remember this now. We also have to open ourselves in the sense that one day we will become an evolutionologist. There was one question, Roberto, one of these easy questions you did bring. How do attributes manifest? I think we have different percentages. And I think this is the important point, to define our percentage. And like Rodrigo said, where I'm welcome and where I'm not so welcome, to understand how these percentages are in my case. I would like to bring some examples about the manifestation of this mega attribute. As I said, we have to identify in our daily life. When we talk about our record, some people idealize this concept. For example, you idealize this record as the balance of several debts from past lives. Well, this in a way is a romantic approach. But in practice, how does it work? How are your relationships with your family? In the group of volunteering, how are your interpersonal relationships? Just that you have a lot of information from your personal record. The likes and the dislikes. When people say, well, people from religion, no, I don't like them. Or Belices, no, these people are awful. And don't recognize and don't have the openness to welcome different groups. And then we are just postponing our evolution. So evolution is change, is movement. As we are able to face Belices, religion, then we are able to deal with different groups. So these capacities we have, they are related to these mega attributes. So when we talk about intentionality, if we have a good intentionality, that's okay until we have a problem. When we have a problem, then the intentionality will change. So I think this manifestation in our daily life is what is important for us to evaluate. And this point about the percentages we have. So we are accumulating experiences, and I would like to see or to hear your opinion about this. For example, can we go back with some mega attributes? For example, when we receive a feedback, a heterocriticism, then the person gets angry and doesn't face it in a good way, in a positive way. So how are you justifying yourself? Then we can see the level of openness for this person. If we consider every mega attribute, we can see. Can see how they manifest.
É quando aparece, quando surge uma circunstância nova que mexe ali com o que precisa ser trabalhado? Uma pergunta, chefe. Uma pergunta para vocês.
Então.
A question for you.
Não, mas quer conhecer bem a pessoa, que negócio, né?
You want to know a person or give power and leadership to this person. So the person is there, very quiet, he's a saint. And then you give a leadership, the person becomes a tyranny or is very involved there. Can I say something? Now it's a good time to talk about self-research, which is one of the attributes, self-research. There is a technical approach, you can accumulate data of yourself, analyze, take conclusions, and also you should face the experience in the terms of really experiment. So when you are cornered somehow, for instance, a situation that leaves you stressed or someone that irritates you, in terms of contentiology, it's already an experiment. I can face it as an experiment. Well, how am I going to react right now? Where does my impatience begins? What I'm going to do when I start being impatient? I'm going to fight with the other person, or what am I going to do? So you can monitor and also try to look over the things. I think this is one approach. Do you agree that these experimentations offers a lighter approach to the process? I cannot face it in a heavy way. I'm not going to minimize that, of course, but I can treat it as another experience. Yes, this is what happens. But the question, Roberto's questions, if this oscillates, in my opinion, yes, it oscillates. The attributes, the mega attributes oscillates. Because if we consider the evolutionary scale by hypothesis, this percentage could oscillate as well. They have up and downs. The deperta, for instance, the attribute fluctuates as well. But you have an X percentage of imperturbability. And I think all these things just fluctuates. And the only way to increase that is through your self-experience, more qualified experiences. But now, we are elders, and sometimes it's a problem because we have a lot of experiences. On the other hand, we don't know how to deal or extract the real value of everything. But on the other hand, Serenissimus have a lot of experience, and the PER of the Serenissimus is consolidated in a way that in these planetary environments, Serenissimus is a reference of imperturbability because of the cosmoethical and multimillennial experiences. But in our case, we should experiment more. In the same line as Alexandre, one of the most important things has to do with the cons recovery. So we have a gap, a deficit relative to recovering cons. So our manifestation in the intraphysical dimension is has a great deficit compared to what we could be manifesting. So this gap is very dark. Sometimes it's hard to manifest these mega attributes, comparing what we could be doing and what we are really doing. Another thing that impacts a lot is the level of interprison. When the person is very involved with the interprison, and that phase, group karmic phase, the interprison phase, suffering the reflex and the effects from what you've done in other lives, it always make it harder, our manifestation. So these attributes starts to rise up, and we are able to manifest them in a more ostensive way when we reach polycarmality. Because I think this is one of the mega attributes, and this is one of the last ones. I think these two factors, lack of cons recovery and group karmic interprison. These two factors make the manifestation of attributes harder. And on the other hand, if you recover in a good way your cons, and the person doesn't have so much interpretation, these mega attributes rise up. So another question, what is the minimum percentage of these 20 mega attributes should we have? What is our big obstacle, evolutionary obstacle right now for us? I'm going to talk in my experience for myself. Talking about sustainability, at least for me, 51% of each of these. Because we have all these resources in conscientiology. We have conscienciometry, conscienciotherapy, the disturbing technique. Okay, this situation disturbed me. For instance, these guys of the music, rap, I hate it. Any reaction and how something bothers you, it shows you something relative to your personal evolutionary register. So I think that at least we must manifest 51% of each attributes. If we have manifesting less than that, it's a red light. So let's face it and see what it takes to develop it. Focus that, it could be self-organization or your PER. Well, but I don't know anything about my PER, so self-research is missing. Not only great retrocognition reviews your PER. I've heard that so many times in conscientiology. People just wait the helpers to reveal them the past lives, like a story, a Disney World princess or story. This is not like that. We have all the data, and self-research is required. If you were born here, you have your family, your group, your volunteering group. You have all the instruments and evidence and facts. How are you going to react that? How do you work in these environments? How does an attribute work? Because oscillation is natural, as Alexandre said, but if it's a very extreme oscillation, it reveals that we must prioritize an adjustment. So I think that this list done by Waldo and exposed in Tertulliari is to fix, this is the priority, this is the priority. Let's work in our pace. We can, if we get this 20 right, it's easier to increase other traits. This is my interpretation, but now, what about you? When we see this list of the 20 attributes, it's like an evolutionary formula. Oh, this is the evolutionary formula. Let's go. Let's start solving these equations. The conventional openness equation. Let's work with all these mathematics. It's easier when you look in the theoretical way, but when you bring it to practice and try to incorporate on daily basis the attribute, and you are not training only, you are that attribute. So this demands more time. And when you look around successive lives, it's easier to understand that we have a lot of oscillations. I'm young, I'm restricted, I need to mature. So it is easier for you to see these oscillations. But there is a point that if you look of the main picture of the attributes. So maybe in this you can have a growing curve if you just face the balance of the attributes, because the consciousness start being the attribute. You are the self-discernment, or something like that. Okay, where is Daniel? What do you think about it, Daniel? If Daniel says so, everything is right. If everything is wrong, we're going to cancel the course. Well, I think Diane's idea is interesting because we talk about mega attribute, but it's not related to only one existence because it is practical and demands daily effort. And we are really constructing it throughout different existences, different lifetimes. Evoking the memory process, for instance, it demands a lot of effort and repetition in order to develop an attribute. And it starts to consolidate in our paramemory and paragenetics, so that the person, when we resumates, you can recover that attributes in a better level, and you go forward from this point on. I also see this vision that requires a persistent effort, and it really demands a lot of lives to develop and consolidate. Who else? Can we talk about the next question? So we've already talked about self-research in our daily life and the application of evolution. So what is missing to reach these 51%? And how I'm going to apply these things? So Isabella was saying, and also Mabel suggested in what situations we can face and recognize and apply that. If there is no stress, the person has a perfect, beautiful life, very good. And if everything is like that, this person has a greater responsibility to provoke and stress situation in order to evolve. Because in our mathematical formulas, quoting paramathematics, you were born here, you have troubles to face and solve. There's no justification. Oh, everything is fine. No. You resumed, there are things to arrange. What you are not facing, because your life is so comfortable and so wonderful. We have 10 mega attributes. And everything is 80%. I have 80% in all of these mega attributes. And the other ones, okay, then I negotiate the other 10 ones. There's not a good way. You're just postponing things. You're gonna let it to deal with it later or in the next life. And this is a very certain formula. If you resonate it, you have something to deal with. And if you think you don't have, probably you don't want to see that. You don't want to face it. You don't want to recognize your problems, or something is missing. Any resource is missing. So we have conscienciometric courses, conscienciotherapy, and conscienciology has today, I'm sorry about this bellic approach, but we have this machine gun, just throwing information and techniques. We have a lot of information, and this is what I say. I can say something regarding to the application. We can emphasize the interassistentiality, because when a person is involved in projects, assistential projects, whatever it is always challenging the person. And he or she will be able to evaluate the self-performance, the difficulties, the counterflows, the discomforts, intraphysical or extraphysical attacks. So interexistentiality is fundamental to start understanding this question, because you're in a very low life. So, for instance, that person that has 80% and is still within a comfort zone with this percentage, oh, something is very wrong there. That's the question. We must seek to use our strong traits and put them in practice, because we have a lot of challenges relative to interassistance, and to deal with coexistence is very difficult, it's very challenging. What else, people? Everybody's agreeing, saying yes.
Podemos passar, então, eu vou passar para questões mais difíceis, então, aqui, que é para a gente encaminhar para o fechamento.
Okay, we can go further with more hard questions in order to approach our ending. But, for instance, why did evolutiologists prioritize such attributes? Of course, if this list, we are able to reach it, some evolutiologists inspired Dr. Valde. So why? You that know the evolutiologists, your close friends, could you please answer that? Oh, okay. Probably in our practical observation, the evolutionologist is going to compare directly with whom? Serenissimus. So when you're analyzing the guinea pig, the constant guinea pig, and you're analyzing multiple lives, and try to see what was the thing that was in support. And probably it is this point that arrive these things. So it is the practical observation of the things that gone right and gone wrong. So what was right? What was behind this right achievement? What are your competences, resources, basing this right outcome? And this gives some clues of the more advanced attributes. So just remember that conscientiology is just the way that Serenissimus is. It's not a theoretical thing. It is the practical, it is the living way of serenology, structured as a scientific corpus. So observe what a Serenissimus does, and how it does that, and why he does that. And facing a more positive approach, you try to follow the right path, and you're going to test on you, and you test if it's working. So it's very pragmatic, and it's relative to experiencing and the experience of those who walked a little faster before. I think this is right, Mabel, right on spot. And we are talking about PER. PER is curriculum. You are very excited. Next life, I want a Maxi Pro X, I really want to evolve. You are talking to the evolutionologist, very excited. And he's going to take a look at your PER. Where is your basic curriculum? Do you have these 20 mega attributes? No. So you need to go back and work your self-organization. So you're going to spend a life here focusing on self-organization, cosmoethics. You can imagine someone who has a little bit more of multidimensional awareness. When you decimate and you rapidly recover lucidity, you're going to analyze what was missing in your past lives and why it was missing. So, oh, that was not the idea, but why? What is the absent trait? What is the aspect, intelligent attribute that was missing so that I could have done something better? So these balances and these analysis, we should do it because we have a lot of tools to do it. But these analysis after your desoma, you have more cosmovision because hypothetically, you can evaluate some variables that you cannot do it in the intraphysical dimension. And you have a lot of clues and paths to show you the priorities that was missing in your past lives. And probably we're going to face some of these attributes, something that was missing to resolve that error that you're not able to overcome in your past intraphysical life. So I think this is that. You go observing. I remember when Valdo talked about that, I used to look at those people that were getting things right. When he was context as Zephyrus, and when he was a conscience like Valdo, he just looked at the people that were getting things right. So that's the hetero research. What are these people doing to get things right? And then you have this confrontation with yourself, this comparison. So someone who is a little bit smarter is going to analyze this, your self-analysis and also a hetero-analysis, which is the guinea pig, the constant guinea pig. You're going to analyze and then you're going to find an attribute and a specific intelligence, a strong trait that helped the person. So that is the value of the grupality. You just look around. Where is the finger of the genius that I still don't have it? And you go in an evolutionary path. There's a verbet of Valdo, which is the pre-evolutionologist's balance. I don't know if Mabel was there during this tertulia, but there was a lot of people in tertuliário and to try to figure out what would be this first impact with the constant recent decimated facing the evolutionologists, the interview with the evolutionologists. And it's not something like a hetero demand. It's way more intraconsensual. And the hardest thing is when you didn't use the attributes that you really had, and you're not able to use them. So I think it's way more intraconsensual. I think if we have some self-criticism, some things are not going to be a surprise. Because you know that you're going to arrive there not in a perfect way. But I think there are going to be surprises as well. Something that you have no clue about. It includes also the assistances that we are able to do, and we are not aware of the repercussion, the multidimensional repercussion of our actions. Yes, so I think the surprises go to a positive way, that you really striked it, got a strike, and it was very important, and I didn't pay much attention. And of course, there are things that probably you missed, you really missed, you're not able to perceive. Talking about surprises, it is related to the lack of self-knowledge as well. Because I don't know if I'm going right or doing things wrong, so it's not good. I think despite all the self-research that we do, it is inevitable because we are this intraphysical body, and our cosmovision tends to be less than when we are consexes. There's a hortopensata about people that overvalue the self-condition, and when reach the extra-physical dimensions are disappointed because, oh, I could have done that and I didn't. So they work with the lucidity paradox because we want lucidity a lot, hardly. But when we have this total lucidity of our potentialities, we can have this melax, this extra-physical melancholia. So I think we can do whatever we can to reach our best selves, but some distortions we're going to have because we are restricted in this dimension. But relative to the orthopensata, for instance, I'm a cousin of the evolutionologists, and when I reach the extra-physical dimension, I realize that I'm not even the person. So maybe I'm going to have some parapsychological problems. It's more dramatic than you facing just all the missing goals that you're not able to accomplish. One exercise that I was doing when I was thinking about this question, what are the works that I understand? The evolutionologists work with groups. So he needs to manage groups. What does he must know a lot? Parallel, in order to respect different evolutionary levels. In order to know parallel, you need to understand the cause-effect law. And then I was looking at the mega attributes. You cannot discard anyone in order to know all these things. And I remember Waldo Vieira just saying that the Serenissimus has some attributes that we don't have even a clue that what this could be. And it's the same for the evolutionologists. Sometimes, maybe, I cannot even wonder some kind of attribute. I cannot even imagine that. You know, Roberta, I don't know if it's more than 50% or it could be less. I don't know. But I know that I should have something, some amount of all of these attributes. And parallel is very important to understand the evolutionologist. That was the exercise, the mind exercise that I did. I think this is it. And for our level, is to have all this set more than 51%. I think the evolutionologist is going to score 7 and more in all these attributes. Juliano, we have questions. Yes, and Rosa was talking that she anticipated the question. Ricardo asked, among the 20 mega attributes, what are those more advanced? Not necessarily the most important, but maybe the most difficult one.
E aí, quem arrisca?
Who can say something?
De cara é o seguinte, ó, sem pensar muito, né? Porque
Okay,
você se vira nos 30, mas
in a prompt question.
galo de cada ou seja, cada a gente tá falando
Oh,
foco, né?
someone that you have these obstacles, your personal obstacle.
Então, às vezes,
We're talking about pearls, so you have your major obstacle. Sometimes self-organization, sometimes your intentions, or this straightness.
sem dúvida, para cada
So for each one of us, it's going to be different.
eu não tenho dúvidas, não.
I don't have any doubts about it.
Diante da complexidade nossa, né? Mas fala
Inside our complexity, I just like to say something relative to the question. The problem is not the most complex one, but the level of your approach relative to each attribute. So it could be a shallow approach or a very deep an approach. For instance, self-organization could be a basic one. And then you can think about self-organization as something very integrated in your life, which is a way more deepened approach and analysis. So how do you apply your level of lucidity of each attribute? And each of these attributes is going to open in different attributes because we're going to study a memorandum. These are more advanced attributes like transaffectivity. So I see these 21 as the pillars of evolution. So if you have these strong pillars, then you can build more strong constructions and you reach more advanced attributes. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. Okay. So you are listening to us, that you are curious about the course, the idea is to explore each of these mega attributes, deepen knowledge, and try to answer these questions. What is this? How you observe that? That's the idea. And in practice, we're going to try to deepen the self-reflection and that's the main idea of the course, because I think this is important to say in order to motivate yourself to face this deepening. Okay, one thing is to talk about these concepts, but relative to the course, the idea of this study in a more thorough way, these attributes bring into your daily reality, how you're going to face it, these mega attributes. Because we talked about percentiles, but if we don't have this idea of this percentile, you cannot just say, oh, I have consensual openness. But in how much of these, you know? And don't try to fool me saying that you have 100% of these. And cosmovision, I think it's the hardest one, because sometimes when I think and I conclude that I have some cosmovision, I have a very broader view, then I'm slapped in the face and perceive that there's way more things related to that situation and shows your very little world. So these are the important realities that we should confront and try to identify the percentage of each attributes that we have and work in group and try to improve. We have the group of instructors, we have group of study cases in order to exchange ideas. So we want to avoid only to explicit this theoretical information. 2 questions relative to the courses. It's a question about the course. The first one is this. Grazi is asking, in a practical way, the instructors are going to monitor this discovery of the mega attributes. If you want to say something about that. On the microphone, please. So we're still developing this advisory work, more specific, more personalized. But in this course, the follow-up process occurs during the debates, because it's we have some content, theoretical content, to pass the essence and a summary about that topic, and then we start a debate among the instructors and the students. And then we have 2 encounters based only on debates. So we can confront the ideas, because we don't have any formula, any specific formula to tell you that you have X percentage of this attribute. So using all the resources that we have in conscientiology and during the class and analyzing study cases, and it's gonna help, and you can use the resources that we have to reach a more precise diagnostic and percentage. So then again, we have conscienciometry, conscienciotherapy. There are a lot of CIs and specialties that can support the study of evolutionologists. So we're not going to discriminate anything. And based on the person's necessity, we can indicate one technique or another. Thank you. The person is thank you, because it clarifies a lot. And indeed, this course is very open to debate. Another question, can I do it? Another student, Adelino, he's asking, he's congratulating for the debate. And could you expand the strong traits discovery and the recovery of cons? Okay, recovery of cons and strong traits. We do have specialists here. Eduardo, Daiane, who else? We can talk about a book. There's a book there that's called Mega Strong Trait. But this movement of the person that starts to identify your strong traits, because the mega strong trait is going to pull a base of other traits. So if the person just go in this flow, trying to figure out the mega strong trait, and then you go amplifying, and then you can talk about the parapsychic mega strong trait, intellectual mega strong trait, and then it goes expanding, and you reach attributes, and then mega attributes. Of course, I'm doing some advertising here about the book, not only because I'm the author, but because the theme is interesting. Khan's recovery. Eduardo, who could say something? I was remembering here the disbelief principle. It is a mega attribute. Okay, I read that, I understand. But how do you see, how do you face, how do you understand the principle of disbelief? When you have a paraperception or a parapsychic vision, or something that is in favor of my ideas, in favor of my wills. So, do you just believe in that paraperception? So there are some subtleties that you can track the percentage of this belief principle. I just want to remember that we have a book called Discrenciogram, which is the disbeliefogram. So we have Diane's book to study mega strong trait. We have the Guilherme to try to find the matter toasting, and we have the Oswaldo's book to make this analysis of the disbelief principle. And of course, there are some other books that I'm not remembering right now. So we are reaching the end of our debate. And I ask for each of you to leave a message. Is it worthwhile to prioritize these 20 mega attributes? And what are the perspective of the course? What can you say about that? So each instructor here has his or her own specialties. And what would you like to say about that? Because it is the set of mega attributes that is interesting. Although you have one of other attributes that you have a more strong relationship with. One of the things that I think fewer things in our life stimulates our cognition than a good debate. So to know that we have a small theoretical part and then the opportunity to deepen in exchanging your own experiences. So conscientiology is practice. So each one contributing with your experiences, your strong traits, recognizing the quality of your strong traits. This values a lot. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here because these instructors assisted me a lot in the past, and now I'm here as an instructor working with them, and it's an honor. It's going to be very good. Just say something. What catch my attention. And of course, I'm going to talk about cosmoethics, but if someone sees someone that is evolved in a very interesting level, and the person doesn't have one of these attributes, so please tell me, because it's very hard to think about a more evolved person and don't think about these mega attributes. And if you want to reach the greater levels of evolution, I cannot see another path. So this is a very important course to deepen these cosmoethics and also other aspects, and also this debate here with all these instructors, it's going to help us a lot. So I'd like to invite you, and this challenge If you know someone that is evolved and doesn't have these attributes, please tell me. One important thing, in the first season, we're talking about this. I discovered that there are two ways to evolve. One is something that is bothering you, and the other is the option to evolve, which is prior, occurs before that this bothering situation. So this is an opportunity for you to go forward and pass these bothering situations. Do not fear the new things, and there are things that you're going to discover about yourself. And I think it's very interesting to move forward through the option of doing this course. Who else would like to say something? We have few more minutes. Rosa, do you want to say? So it was already said about the importance of the debate, but I'd like to highlight this methodology. That is, we have a set of questions and we develop the topics through. And what is this subject? How do we apply? How does this topic manifest? And while we're answering these questions, we have a synergism of the ideas, and it's a very strong basis for the debate, and we're able to increase our mind just is more open. In the beginning, it's a little bit hard to think, and out of the sudden, we have this synergism, and it amplifies our vision relative to the subject, which is way more productive debate. So I'm sharing my experience. It happened to me, and I hope it happens to everyone that participates in this course. Anyone else? Our last minutes. Just to strengthen that this course, we learn from each other. We are now reaching the second season. So the course brings a lot of self-reflection, self-diagnosis, and this deepening self-research. I'm a fan. And we're just going towards self-confrontation. So when we analyze all these mega attributes and you bring it to our intraconsciential reality, you have this opportunity of these self-healthy confrontations. So this is what we're seeking. And for sure, it was a different, important thing for every one of us here relative to conscientiological teaching. And we invite you all to come along in this marathon of self-confrontation relative to these mega attributes. Anyone? I want to highlight my experience that happened in the first season is this deepening that each class gives us. And it's not only theoretical, but also we can experiment things in a more deepened way. And we understand better conscientiology. And of course, everything comes together through self-confrontation. But it's a peaceful self-confrontation when we're starting to understand better these concepts. So it was one of the benefits that I had the first season. And I hope that everyone can also take advantage of that. So the course, the way it is conducted, first season and the second season, probably it's going to happen as well. We have this cosmophysiological view. We have debates between instructors and students. So this is just amplifying your view relative to all these attributes. And there is a synergy between these attributes. So the more we advanced in each topic, you are able to perceive the relationship between or the connections between the attributes. And it helps us to develop the cosmovision. And when the person starts in this course that we have 22 weeks, so the person is already tuning in this holotocene in order to favor your reasoning and how to apply that in your personal context. So it tends to help the person to amplify the vision, and if the person is motivated with self-evolution. Mabel? Just one thing, something that Daniel said. So we have some highlights of the course. And one is the holotocene of Evolutionology. So we're talking, we have a lot of debaters talking about Evolutionology. So it is like a vessel of ideas, advanced ideas. Eduardo? I'd just like to strengthen that the perception relative to the first season, from the first into the last class, my level, my personal level of understanding and application of these topics increased a lot. So if you can compare myself in the first day of the debate, now I have a greater and a different understanding. And this is one way to improve the mega attributes as well. We go along promoting this boiling of ideas. I'd like to invite you all because it's a course that everybody is studying and working together. So what we learn in these debates, and this is why it is a big open debate. So it is important that the students participate and construct knowledge. And this is fundamental for interassistentiality. So we have this second season, there is a crescendo, and we amplify the concepts. And Mabel said, of course, this is a lucid evocation of evolutionology, because this is something they're trying to understand with a great effort. So here is this invitation, come to debate with us. So to finalize, if you have any doubts or questions about the course, payment conditions, and we have independent modules. The price is 65 reais, it's very accessible. And I'd like to say about the first class, this evolution does not stop. Despite if you are making an effort or not, the train is going. So we need to move ourselves, go after that, because the boat is sailing. So we are here, and thank you all instructions. In the name of CEAEC, I'd like to thank all the team, the transmission and the translation, but we are recording, so it is registered, all this acknowledges, and it's going to be available for everyone, this debate, as a first class of the fundamentals of evolutionology. We wait you all. Big hug.